Vehbi Baysan. He's an associate professor of history at Ibn Haldun University. As an associate professor of history, I'm fascinated by your take on the fact that with this particular tragedy, and we have to call it a tragedy, unfolding, ongoing tragedy for many, many decades, people have very many different frames of reference. So for a lot of Israelis, this was an attack last week like ISIS, coming out of nowhere, attacking, killing, men, women, and children, unprovoked, out of nowhere, in a vacuum. For Palestinians, they say, well, there's an occupation, there's a siege, there's daily dehumanization, there's bombing campaigns, and there's a history of dispossession, and our land was stolen. How difficult is this to unpack in the present when you have such different frames of reference and so many such unique and different starting points, whichever one people choose to believe?
Well, that makes things probably most complex and unsolvable in a sense, because in these kind of conflicts you have two sides. We would think that people of Israel and people of Palestine. However, we have also above them politicians with different agendas. I think when we put all these actors in one pot, makes it very difficult to understand what had happened. But you're absolutely right. When from the point of Israelis, it seems the short memory gave them a false sense of security, in a sense that as close as to Gaza, which is everyone is saying, the world's biggest open-air prison, they are organizing a rock concert or the techno concert. These youngsters, these beautiful people, let's say, coming all around the world to attend there, forgetting that these are occupied lands and etc.
And that's interesting. I mean, and sorry to interrupt you. I'll let you complete your point here. It's that the occupation of East Jerusalem and the West Bank and the siege of Gaza, I mean, the Israelis like to say we left Gaza, we removed the settlers, but of course they control the airspace, the sea space, the borders, everything. What's in and out, there's always restrictions. Yeah. Was that so out of sight, out of mind for so many Israelis to the extent that they could have this like rave overnight party festival right on the border with Gaza and not think that there's anything maybe pathological happening across where people are in an open air prison?
Well, this is what I'm saying. I mean, in the last 7 decades, people living under either Israeli occupation or their politicians' occupation. You see, so also Israelis living under constant terror, because it was always portrayed in the 70s and 80s that these Palestinians will attack us, Arabs will attack us, so it's always a fear there. But people want to live their ordinary, whatever it is, the ordinary lives. Both Palestinians and Israelis need that. I think that made things over there, like for probably the last 5-10 years, at least for the Israelis, at least the ones living in the southern part of Israel, in the occupied lands, all these settlers are so comfortable that something like this would ever happen, because it never happened, you see. They had this image of Israel, that army is in full control, their politicians are in full control, and everything is fine, but it wasn't, because in the last at least a good 5 to 7 years, we don't have only the Israeli army's attacks, but also the settlers' attacks towards Palestinians. So when you look at it from that perspective, that brings us to another era which is quite disturbing, because when someone dies, it's really bad, and when 10 people die, it's really tragedy. But over 100 people, it's just statistics.
Yeah,
and
that's Stalin awful, quote.
You see?
It's
when you go there, it's like 1,500 Israelis died or Palestinians died. International community look at it as numbers, but these are somebody's children, somebody's father, somebody's fiancé, somebody's wife. So we forgot the humanitarian side of it. In fact, in these kind of conflicts, the humanity loses. So there's no winner to it. So when it comes, I think if we wrap up a little bit, that these are territories internationally recognized as occupied territories. Having the terms like settlements is not going to make it or soften it just simply because group of people go in and settle in somewhere. But these are someone else's land. So in the eyes of Palestinians, these are the lands that belong to them internationally, under international law. But that's not enough, but they have this daily humiliation, and there is no solution to it. When I speak with Gazans, they were saying, and I know personally when, as you just mentioned, peace agreement between Jordan and Israel, I was in Jordan, and you know, half of Jordan is originally Palestinian, and they were actually expecting some outcome from that peace, and they were ready to forget what had happened.
Can I get a short answer from you? Yeah, because I have to move forward, and I know you've been waiting for ages, right?
No problem.
As a historian especially, you talk of the international community. There are those who say, well, two-state solution based on 1967 borders, you know, we'll figure it out, Palestinian state in the Gaza Strip and West Bank, East Jerusalem as the capital. That's the conventional international sort of community one.
Right.
Settlements complicated, all these things complicated. There's that, some will say one state, BDS. There are Israelis who say one state, but all of ours, right? Hamas has, you know, fluctuated in its views on all of these things. Have events over the past week in your eyes, whether one state, two state, three states, whatever it looks like for peace and justice, have events over the past week given any one of those narratives more weight as a solution?
Probably not, because I think if there is a will, there is a way. If, let's say, Israeli politicians are willing to cooperate and accept this internationally recognized concept of two-state solution, could have done so far. I think that's where we should start, and we should stop all these shellings and killing people. I think two-state solution is the best solution, but there are probably groups or very strong, powerful individuals within the Israeli government. They don't want that, and similarly in the Palestinian side, because we struggle to explain to ourselves how on earth all of a sudden we have such an attack and in such intensity and devastating effects, consequences we have, because now we're talking about in Israelis, the people of Israel, in their collective memory, this is going to remain for years, and probably they will ask a lot of questions to their own leadership. So that's, you know, is going to come. But when it comes to Palestinians, not everyone in Gaza supported Hamas,
of course,
or not necessarily to their tactics. But when you look at it now, the shelling of Gaza goes always like the Hamas targets.
Right.
So as if these missiles or these huge bombs are like very selective in their
and they're wearing badges.
Yeah, you see,
saying
so
I'm Hamas.
it doesn't work that way.
Okay, Assistant Professor Vehbi Baysan from Ibn Haldun University, Professor of History.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your perspective.